Hello and welcome back to part 2 of the look into the game Redvers Reverse. The music, by the way, is a Boer marching song, the tune of which goes back to the 17th century when the Dutch, the ancestors of the Boers, were fighting the Spanish. So after that stirring introduction, it's back to the game. And we have reached the British rifle fire segment. Now I should point out here that every segment has detailed phase-by-phase instructions printed on the map, which at first glance looks rather overwhelming, and indeed the first few turns will require constant reference to these phases. However, the procedure is easy to memorize, and after only a short time you'll be able to dispense with the minutiae and simply rely on the segment track here. During the British rifle fire segment, the British will try to inflict losses on adjacent Boer units and disrupt their morale. Now, in this first example, we see the mounted brigade at Langwani. Now, they would get a base 2 for a firing unit, plus 1 for supporting attack, but they would also get -1 for being disrupted and -2 for the enemy in emplacements, giving a net 0. So as a 7 on a single die is required to inflict a loss, there is no point firing, and we move on to the next group. Now, the Fusiliers here will get 4 for a firing unit, +1, -2 for emplacements, equaling 3. Now they require only a 5 to hit, but they miss. The 2 light infantry battalions also require a 5, and this time a loss is inflicted. Now, whenever a unit takes a loss, it must test its morale using the brigade morale chart. A 2d6 roll is made, and we see that there is no effect, so the commando unit remains disrupted. Next is the British recovery segment, and again we consult the charts. Now first we need to test to see if Dundonald loses his stand firm status, which he does on a 2d6 roll of 4 or more. Then we test for each individual unit with a disrupted or suppressed marker on it, and 2 units recover their morale. The light infantry brigade also tests. Suppressed units can recover 1 or 2 levels, but the unit here fails its test. Well, now we come to the segment most players will dread. This is the Boer rifle fire segment. And this is where the non-player Boers can inflict serious damage to disrupt the player, because whereas artillery fire can only cause a morale drop, rifle fire can inflict losses, reducing or eliminating units, both of which increases the Boer confidence and losses tracks, contributing to the Boer victory. Now, the first group will fire on the mounted brigade. And firstly, we have to set up the targeting process I described in the previous video with reference to artillery fire. Now, because the Boers have 2 eligible target areas, the plot markers are distributed equally, and a die roll of 4 determines that the target area will be the units in the brush area with Dundonald. The fire values are 5 for the strongest firing unit, which is the Wakkerstroom Commando Group, +1 for multiple attack, +2 for firing at a mounted regiment, -2 for being suppressed, they can still fire but suffer the appropriate penalty, -1 for the target being in brush, and the total is 5 plus a die roll of 6, which is 11, scoring 1 hit on Thornycross Regiment, which is already reduced and is now eliminated. Now, when a unit takes a loss, all units of that brigade in the target area must test morale as follows. Firstly, the leader tests for morale, and Dundonald is fine. Then the leader must test for survival. If he rolls a 2 or a 12, he is killed. Dundonald unfortunately rolls a 12 and is removed, and is immediately replaced by flipping the counter. Now the brigade tests next. It has a -1 modifier because it has one eliminated unit in the brigade, and it's another -1 for being a mounted brigade. The result is disrupted, so the brigade remains as it is and does not alter its already disrupted status. I'll proceed to describe the remaining fire sequences without repeating the details. The Fusilier battalions in Colenso take fire from the 2 commando groups on the north bank. Now you might imagine that they would receive a defensive bonus for being in a built-up area, but this only happens if Boer units are also present in the same area, so no modifiers here. And the brigade takes 2 hits, which are shared between the Royal Fusiliers and Royal Scots Fusiliers. The morale test results in both units becoming disrupted. And in the final example, the King's Royal Rifles, part of the light infantry brigade, is also fired on and also takes a hit. The penultimate segment sees the Boers testing for being shaken. Now this test is only performed if the confidence marker is in or below the space occupied by the turn marker, which does not apply in this case. You can see that the confidence marker is currently 3 spaces higher than the turn marker. Now, firstly, the marker is always shifted up 1 space before the end of the turn, and the other 2 spaces correspond to the eliminated mounted regiment and, as mentioned in the previous episode, the fact that the British failed to occupy the lower front line area before turn 5. You can also see that the losses marker, which begins on the 10 space, has also been increased by 1 due to the loss of the mounted regiment. Well, the game now continues to the next turn, where we will call a halt. Hopefully I've been able to relay some of the atmosphere of the game. As I said in my review, it's not a game for those who get easily frustrated. You can see that the British have to spend a great deal of time and effort inching forward and recovering from disruption while not taking too many losses. On the plus side, they do reduce Boer confidence by eliminating commando groups and capturing Boer emplacements, and that's how they contribute to a British victory. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the playthrough. As always, thanks for watching, and I hope to be looking at another Legion war game release very soon. Bye for now.